Welcome to Cat Unmuted. I am your host, Cat. If you like what I share and what I do here, feel free to subscribe and like my videos and podcasts. I'm going to do something different today. If you've watched my previous episodes, I've been doing this by myself, and really it's hard to talk on my own. So I've been very um, I'm probably hard to listen to. I feel like I am hard to listen to. It's me. I'm going to be the most critical person in the room to myself, obviously, but I still think I'm a little hard to listen to because I have a hard time talking into the camera without feeling weird and awkward. So, but I do have a lot to share. So I do want to continue sharing my stories and my knowledge and all that stuff. But I'm thinking about uh, starting to basically bring guests on so that I'm not always talking to myself. So I've basically listed out some questions I could ask the guest. And for today's episode, I want to question me. So I can start this and see how it plays out because I don't know how long it's going to take. I mean, it's going to be me alone today. So obviously, it'll be a lot different when I actually have a person to talk to. But I'm sure it'll kind of give me a little bit of an idea, a better idea of how this may flow. And I may need to change my questions. So this is gonna be like a practice for me. One thing I do want to keep though is the authenticity of the show, which I will like I've always done. I don't want to edit my videos. Like I want it to be raw and my mistakes will be recorded, and you know what I mean? So I'll obviously tell the guests about that I don't edit my videos. Um, but with that said, let's proceed. So the first question obviously is, who are you today? What do you do? What are you passionate about? And if anything, what would someone assume about you if they met you today? So for me, I am an author, I'm a writer. And the reason I say both is because I have books that I've written, so obviously an author, but I have also written, and this is very recent, I haven't really told anybody about it yet, but I have a self guided workshop to help with self communication called Reflective Truth, that is nowhere to be found yet. Um, it will be out in public soon. I will talk about all about that some other time. But um, what am I passionate about? I am passionate about self improvement, self growth, self development, and whatever that will help me be better in every sense of the word. So, better like better in a healthy way, better in a mental health way, all of it. Um, and I have learned a lot of that has everything to do with your self talk, and that's one of the reasons I'm uh, specializing in that part of the world. Um, and I'm also really passionate about fun, and also being aware of where you're at or where I'm at. So, for example, I love my Jeep. We haven't gone out riding in a long time just because we're trying to move, and we have to sell the Jeep soon too. So we are trying not to break it. So, but we do like taking the Jeep out, and we have a dog named Maya. We love taking her out, and it's just a great combination. And um, I also have passion in different kind of creative stuff. Books are one of them. Like somehow books became a thing for me. But I love creating things in the sense of like my website. I've done that all by myself. I love doing it. Um, and I had a whole Cricut machine set up where I was able to create my own designed mugs and all kinds of stuff. And I used that a lot when I had my uh, massage business in the past. Like I used to vend, and I would make all these things and sell them. That was a lot of fun. I may or may not pick that up back up just because of how fun it is. Um, what would people or someone assume about me if they met me today? There's a possibility people might find me um, cold hearted. Um, because I tend to tell the truth and I say it pretty directly, and not very many people know how to take that. But depending on the person, I might not even say it. It really depends. But uh, yeah, they might find me cold hearted a little bit. But once they start getting to know me, people tend to like me pretty well, if that makes sense at all. Okay, so the person I was before, who was I before becoming this version of me? What was my mindset back then? What did you believe about yourself that isn't true anymore? And what was your hardest rock bottom, and how many rock bottoms have I had? Okay, so let's start from the bottom question. I've had a total of three rock bottoms, and that's not. I think a lot of people relate rock bottoms to financial stability, but that is not necessarily true. Like just the feeling of my whole world just crashing down around me in general. I've had three of those. And the hardest one was my last one, which was my miscarriage. But I'll get to that one in a second because this is talking about who I was before in general. So I was born and raised in Japan. My dad and my mom separated since I was like 3 years old. They finally got a divorce when I was a teenager. Um, I was in a sense internationally kidnapped by my father. My dad sent us to Denver to live with his mother because he couldn't afford American schools in Japan anymore. So he sent us away to a public school in the United States. And we were supposed to go back for the summer to see him. And my mom stayed in the United States uh, waiting for us to come back from our summer vacation trip to see my dad. And she didn't even know that it was decided we were going to be there until like a week or two before we were supposed to be on the plane to go back. So, um, yeah, in a sense, it was like an international kidnapping, and I didn't even know about that until I talked to my mother when I was like, how old was I? 26. Yeah, because that's when I moved to Denver after my shenanigans in Japan. Anyway, so that happened, and so that kind of created a lot of uh, negative mindsets with me because, like, the life I had in Japan, I had a narcissistic mother or stepmother, excuse me. My mother is amazing. My stepmother, however, not so much. And she made me and my family believe individually that we were basically not worth anything to anybody. Like we were just shit, you know? And that's what I believed. So that was the kind of mindset I had. And then moving to the United States at 26, um, oh yeah, um, I found out I was illegal in Japan. Um, that's a long story between my dad and my stepmother. And I didn't know that until I was in my early 20s. Like, I want to say I was not 22. I was 24. I found out when I was 24. And um, yeah, yeah, I didn't. I stayed there for another 2 years. I was illegal since I was like, I can't remember. I want to say I was 18, I think, when my visa expired. And for all of you people who think I'm using the wrong word, I don't care how it's supposed to be worded. This is in Japan. This is not America. So illegal is the right word, not undocumented or whatever you want to call it. Um, but my point is, I was not legally there and I had to make a decision. And so I surrendered to the immigration office and flew back to the to the United States, in a sense back. Like Japan was always my home, so I never considered me going back, you know. But whatever the case is, I'm in the United States at the age of 26. Excuse me. I want to get a sip of water real quick. And I hadn't seen my mother since I was 14. We saw her for like 2.5 seconds when I was like 17 or something like that. We had a lot of phone calls. But anyway, so um, uh, what is it now? Where am I at? Um, so yeah, that was kind of uh, the version of me I had to deal with way before what I'm going through now. So that um, just to like wrap up the past me, I couldn't find a job within a year, so I desperately joined the military. My first rock bottom was in Japan as an adult, and my second rock bottom was in the military. Like I was financially stable because I was in the military. I didn't have financial problems. However, the shit that they made me go through, I let's just say it just made me go so crazy. And it didn't help that I was going through a divorce at the time either. But things happened, and that was when I found the confidence in me. Because it was the like my mindset was like I was a people pleaser because I knew that if I didn't please people, people wouldn't like me because I wasn't worth anybody's time, So my presence was practically shit nothing, and so that's how I lived my life. But that rock bottom made me realize that I was the most important thing, and it doesn't matter what other people thought of me. So that mindset changed during that time. And um, uh, yeah, so that was the hardest season of my life, though. Fast forward, out of the military, this is only 2 years ago. I had my business as a massage therapist. I had my own practice for 9 years, and I had a miscarriage. And that miscarriage was probably the hardest rock bottom I have ever experienced in my entire life. And that, you know, I dealt with a lot of like self criticization, and because I was never good enough, even though I have put myself on the pedestal when I was in the military and found that I'm the most important thing. I was still having a very hard time believing that I was worth all this. And having my massage business had actually taught me that that's no longer true, and I had so much going for me. But the miscarriage made me realize I was still not living the life I deserved or the life that I wanted, even though it was very close because I had my own business. I loved it. I loved working with my clients. I loved all of them. But I wasn't where I felt like I needed to be, if that makes any sense. So that rock bottom took me out of that and put me into this author, writer lifestyle. Um, what did I believe? There's a couple of questions here. So, what was your mindset back then? So, again, my mindset was horrible. And um, what did you believe about yourself that isn't true anymore? Like, I think I've answered that question too. I didn't believe I could. I didn't believe I was worth it, all of that stuff. And that's no longer true. Um, the turning point, what changed? What is a single moment? Was it a single moment or a series of moments? What truths did you finally have to face? What story were you telling yourself that had to die? What did you stop, or what did you stop blaming? And what did you start taking responsibility for? I think I answered those questions actually in the last part, right? Um, what changed? Like the turning point. Okay, so um, the turning point, I'm just going to talk about the miscarriage because, there's a lot of, there was definitely a series. It wasn't just a single moment, right? There's the rock bottom I had in Japan, the rock bottom in the military, and ultimately the rock bottom that I experienced during my miscarriage is what brought me here. So I'm going to talk about that. And let's see. So, yes, it was a series of stuff, but again, I'm going to hone in into the miscarriage, but even during the miscarriage, it was not just one thing. It wasn't just the miscarriage. It was so many things that brought me to the conclusion that where I was at was not where I needed to be or wanted to be. All at the same time I was going through a miscarriage, because of the miscarriage, there was like a lot of things that was happening that kind of helped it as well, like the hormonal fluctuations, and that kind of led to a lot of uh, um, things I didn't know I had medically. Like I found out I had adenomyosis. I had no idea, and uh, I also found out that I have this 3 centimeter thick gallstone, which has not sent me into any kind of pain, which is amazing. And what else did I find out? Oh, I have like a low level uh, of fatty liver, which it's a low level, so it's not threatening or anything. But um, with everything that I'm doing, um, my doctor or my acupuncturist, they don't think like they just said that I need to make sure that I keep doing what I'm doing with my diet. Anyway, so it led to that. But um, during the miscarriage, aside from all the mental stuff, or not mental stuff, physical medical issues that I found out about, we were also at a financial rock bottom, and um, and I had my brother with me. My mom was moving in, and my brother actually is no longer here. But like, I had a lot of responsibilities, and I'm getting all of this crashing down around me, right? And um, with the emotional distress, emotional pain, the physical pain, the physical, like there was so much going on. With that said, all of that kind of um well, I'm going to hone in into like this one moment. Okay, the hormonal fluctuations was a huge one because I was going into this postpartum depression, um and also um a mental disorder, so to speak, where I was emotionally dissociating myself. I emotionally dissociated so hard that I couldn't feel a connection between what I was feeling on my skin and like, because whatever you smell, whatever you feel, there's usually an emotional portion that kind of is connected to the physical feel that you have. And I was losing that. And I could tell because the feelings I was getting on my skin felt different and it felt wrong at the same time. And the depression was getting so bad that um, not only was I feeling alone in this, because, I'm the one experiencing all this, but it was so bad that like everything was just so numb and I felt like a zombie and like I didn't have a soul. Like it was pretty bad. So anyway, um uh all of this stuff in combination got me thinking, like every time I was massaging my clients, what I would be thinking was uh I had this really narrow window, and some of my clients had service dogs. So I would leave the bottom part because the window was almost practically ceiling to floor to ceiling length, but it was a very narrow window. Um, but the bottom part I kept open for the service dog so they had a place to be, so to speak, so they can get bored and watch cars and people walk by outside the window. Anyway, there was just enough space at the bottom to be able to see what was happening on the other side of the window, whether it was windy, because I would see leaves or trash fly by on the ground. And I would see little glimpse of like shadow or sunlight through the leaves of the trees above that was above the window. And um I would stare at that and think, I really want to feel all of that on my skin right now. Like I want to feel the sun, I want to feel the wind, I want to feel the rain, I want to feel all of it. Because while I was massaging my clients, as much as I loved them, I suddenly felt like I couldn't be in a room any longer. Like I had a fairly big space in my office. I had three other rooms, and they were all used for something. But the point is, while I was massaging, I'll be in this one room, and I found myself not liking being in that room and not being able to um, do whatever I wanted because my whole day was dedicated to all of my clients. And yes, I was pursuing what I was pursuing at the time was to expand my business and pull myself out of the equation of working on clients and working on the back end, like the office stuff. Um, and I worked on that for 9 years, which I was getting there, and then the pandemic kind of got in the way. But um, with that said, it was taking longer than I wanted it to. Uh, and whatever the case is, I think the miscarriage had made that more unbearable all of a sudden, that situation. And I was practically desperate to not be there. I was desperate to be outside. I was desperate to yeah, to it, like just feel everything on my skin. That was the desperation, is to feel. Um yeah, so that was the uh ultimately what turned my life around because of that thought. And uh hold on, let me read through what I have here so I can like, because I'm starting to lose what I my point here. Single moment or a series of moments which I've been getting into. What did you finally have to face? That was kind of what I was facing, was whether what I needed to do with my business, because I couldn't stay there anymore. Like I was desperate to get out. Um, yeah, so the desperation of getting out, I think that's the point I'm getting here. So because of that, I'm not going to get into all the details because there was a lot happening during that time. Because ultimately, I was like, okay, this means I need to hire employees and physically pull myself out of the equation. Like, I was ready to do that, but I wasn't financially able at the time. And at some point, I realized that I had to make a very hard decision. It's either I keep working and keep pursuing what I was trying to do, which is hire employees and pull myself out of massaging, or start writing. And the only reason writing was on the table was because I did publish my first two books at that point. I didn't know I could write like that. And I did, and I published it, and all of a sudden the the option of being an author, which would give me everything I needed, because I didn't have to answer to anybody. Like I didn't have to answer to anybody as a massage therapist either, but I had clients to take care of, you know. And as an author, I'm helping people through reading, not through a session one on one. So because of that option, this option that wasn't even available to me before, I had to come to terms that writing was in fact in me and that I could do stuff like that. So I pulled the trigger and said, you know what, this is what I want to do, and closed my business and pursued writing. And I published my third book sometime after I closed down my business. But yeah, I had to make a very hard decision. So a decision I didn't want to make, because I was creating this business from the ground up. It was my baby. It was my everything practically. You know what I mean? Um, yeah. Okay. So that explained what story, or what did you have to finally face? Your story, what story were you telling yourself that had to die? What did you stop blaming? What did you start taking responsibility for? Let's see. First of all, I think it's safe to say that I didn't really blame anybody. In my past rock bottoms, I did. But this one, the blame, or not even the blame, while I was going through all this, I was already working on myself a lot. And I already saw, despite this hardship that I went through because of a miscarriage and all of that stuff, um, I knew that it was happening for a reason, because it was taking me in such a different direction all of a sudden, that, like, and seeing how I evolved into an author, it was hard to miss. So I knew that this was a hard reset, so to speak, for me to be where I'm at right now. And I believe that. So there was really no blame, except when I was going through my miscarriage, when I found out I did miscarry, and I still had the baby in me, by the way. So I didn't know I miscarried until I had the ultrasound appointment. And uh, we had to figure out whether I actually had a miscarriage. I guess she was like the ultrasound tech kept asking me questions and about like whether or not I remember having a sharp pain at the bottom, like at the bottom of my gut area, right where my uterus is. And I was like, I do remember having a sharp pain. And it was the day after I had a Wendy's burger, and for the longest time, I blamed the Wendy's burger for my miscarriage. I was telling a friend of mine of this, and she was telling me that she had a miscarriage before too, multiple actually, and she said that she blamed something as well. It wasn't a Wendy's burger, but it was some like food, and a friend of hers was telling her that if eating fast food was literally the reason for the miscarriage, there would be a line of pregnant women. Yeah, anyway, for those who didn't want the baby, right? Like, and I thought that was so funny because it's true, right? Like, if that was a known thing, that people would be doing that. But uh, anyway, so I blamed the burger, but um, through some talking sessions with my life coach, I came to terms with something that I had to um, face. Oh, that's in there. What did you finally have to face? I had to face something. My miscarriage was making me numb. Again, I was emotionally dissociated, and apparently it's because I had this hope that I wasn't going to die alone. And the baby was proof, so to speak, that I wasn't going to die alone. And the only reason this was even a thing in my head is because my great aunt, she lived to be 113 when she passed. And there was a joke going between me and my husband that I was going to live longer than him. And somewhere deep inside, that was a bit of a worry, and getting pregnant gave me hope. And when I lost it, I had lost that hope. So I didn't only lose a baby, I lost hope of not dying alone. And I had to face that, which I didn't even know that was a thing until I was talking to my life coach. And we covered it. I cried my eyes out, like, yeah. And uh, I suppose there's probably a lot more that I should probably be doing for that. But that will be for the future, because I'm trying to move to Japan. So, but I am definitely not opposed to getting therapy or having another life coach I can talk to back, like when I move over there. Like, I'm not opposed to it at all. I love having these talks because it opens up things I didn't even know existed, and I love it because it makes me better by knowing about it. You know what I mean? Anyway, um, uh, what did you start taking responsibility for part? The fact that I decided to shut down my business and pursue being a writer, and I haven't mentioned this yet, but well, I kind of did, but we're moving to Okinawa, right? Like, we made that decision after after the miscarriage. We had already started talking about moving somewhere before the miscarriage, but once the miscarriage happened, we're like, There's no reason why we have to think about where the baby needs to be. We just need to do what we want to do. And Okinawa just happened to be the answer. And uh, yeah, so that happened because of the miscarriage as well, or the pregnancy. And like, we're literally doing everything we want now. Like, I'm a writer. I have all the freedom that I need. I can go anywhere I want to and write. I can um, move to Okinawa and still do the same thing and live in a tropical place, which I've been dying for because New Mexico is way too dry for me. I miss water so much. I miss greenery so much. I miss trees. I miss all of it. I miss all of it. And people are always telling me like, aren't you worried about bugs and stuff? I'm like, no, I would take the bugs. I would take the humidity just to get my water and my trees and my grass and my flowers. So anyway, all of that came about because of this. And so what did you start taking responsibility for? I'm taking responsibility of how my life is going to turn out. By the time I'm 70, I'm setting this up so that when I'm 70, I am in bliss. I am in peace. And unhappiness can always be in my life, obviously. Like, you can't avoid unhappiness because you're still going to have losses. I might have a dog or a cat that I've lost, or I'm sure I'll have more family members that I'll be losing. Unhappiness is always going to be in my life, but if I set up what I'm doing right now the way I have it imagined in my head, by the time I'm 70, despite the unhappiness I might go through because of life, I will still be in bliss and peace. There's a difference between the two. Like, bliss, I feel like you're living life, but also peaceful. You know what I mean? So anyway, yeah, that's the turning point part. Yeah, this is definitely going to take more than half an hour. The tools. What has become a non-negotiable in my life? What habits keep me grounded? How do you handle hard days now? What do you do when old patterns try to come back? How has your self-talk changed? Okay, so let's just go step by step. What has become a non-negotiable, and what habits keep me grounded? Um, you know, I think the most important thing is to have a lot of gratitude in my life, because that gratitude is what brings a better mindset. Like, let's say, for example, um, New Mexico. I'm going to use New Mexico as an example. It doesn't rain much here, and when it does, I am super happy, which everybody's happy, but then nobody drives because it's scary to drive, right? In all honesty, like, I want to be out there. For example, like, I want to be out there with my Jeep and do donuts in the wet sands. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like that is fun. And it only happens when there's rain. So my point is, uh people see rain and they're like, oh, we needed this, but now I can't go out because it's so scary driving in it. But, like, why say but and I can't do stuff? You know what I mean? Like, like, you can be grateful for something and not have a negative intonation on the backside of it. You know what I mean? Like, it's raining and I'm gonna go have fun in it. And if you don't want to have fun in the rain, you can just say, oh, it's raining, a perfect weather for a nice movie or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, there doesn't need to be a but, you know? And I think that's the non-negotiable, is that how you react, how I react to things that happen that I have no control over. There are 2 flies in my room and it is starting to bug the shit out of me. Anywho, Um, what habits keep me grounded? I think that's the same thing. Those habits, I've made it a habit because every time I feel like I'm going in a negative direction, I'll try to change it. Not saying I always do that, because the initial emotion is important, because the rain, if it's falling and I'm like, oh man, I really wanted to be out there today, but now it's raining, it's fine. You know what I mean? Like, that's your initial reaction, and you can't help that. But you can help how you react to it after that initial reaction. It's not bad that it's raining, and you can't help that it's raining. So even though you have had that initial reaction, you can mention it, or I can mention it, or whatever, but you shouldn't hold on to that. You know what I mean? Like, so by acknowledging my first reaction, and then also saying, but that's okay, because I can still watch a movie. It's a perfect time for a movie. And so the habit is making that change in your thought process to make it a good, as opposed to holding on to that bad. Um, and that kind of explains the how do you handle the hard days now. I do that change, and if it's something that's hard to like change that mindset, I find talking about it helps. So I'll find my husband and I'll talk about it. And whether he's actually listening or not, he's a good listener, because all I have to do is talk. And I usually talk my way into understanding what I need to do. So he's like that unlistening therapist that I need in my life. But it works for me, so it's whatever. Um, so that's that. Um, and I think that's kind of the same thing with the what do you do when old patterns try to come back? I talk it out, because if I do recognize that an old pattern is coming back, and I'm trying to the it's hard for me to keep that negative like thought from coming out or whatever, I will talk it out. I think the hardest thing for me right now though is food. Oh my God. Um, I I love snacking. Especially after dinner and while we're watching TV. And um it is so hard for me not to. But so so that pattern, that's a pattern. It comes back, and I have to remind myself what I'm doing. It's not, oh, I'm missing out right now. My thought process is, if I take care of myself now, in the future, I'm not going to be struggling with health issues. You know what I mean? Like, I have health issues now. I don't want to be uncomfortable. Like, I want to be comfortable. I want to live a vigorous life. And I want to live in bliss as well. And in order to do that, you kind of have to be healthy physically. And not just that, physical health also affects mental health. I don't know if many people know this, but like, when your body is internally in survival mode, your mental being will be in survival mode. If your internal physically oh my goodness, if your internal self physically is fighting for its life, in the sense of, like, let's say you're not giving your body the nutrition that it needs, then it's fighting for its life, right? At that point, your brain knows that, and the chemical reactions, let me rephrase that, the brain doesn't know that. All the brain is going to do is have these chemical reactions that are not firing off correctly, and that can cause um, negative, like, thought processes. Like, it's hard to think positively when your mind is not nourished, when your body is not nourished. If it's fighting, your brain is going to fight too. And that's going to come out verbally, as well as uh, uh, thoughts, verbal thoughts that you have with yourself. So I try to think about that, like, because I want to live a blissful life. And in order to do that, I have to be physically healthy as well. So I keep that in mind um, whenever I'm struggling. And it's hard to keep up with something that you struggle with. So I don't make myself do this every single day. Um, but I try to have space in between my bad decisions. Um, I try to make those days longer every time so that months later, I won't be struggling with that as much. Does that make sense? Like, because that is how you create habit, right? Like, yeah. Um, how has your self-talk changed? Oh my God, it has changed a lot. Like, I think that's all I talked about just now. So we're gonna leave that at that. The unmuted questions, I call it, well, cat unmuted. I think that was, I didn't have to say that. What is a truth you have resisted for too long? What are you no longer pretending about? What lesson cost you the most to learn? I think that is an easy question to answer. What lesson cost you the most to learn? The miscarriage? Like, I believe, because there has been a lot of opportunities in the past where, before the miscarriage, where, because I was starting to think about doing more writing. Like, I started my first book, which is not finished yet today, in 2020. And I started really writing with my newsletters, and people were responding to it so well. There has been signs that I should have been pursuing writing, and I didn't, because massage therapy was what I was doing. So it just never crossed my mind to take that route until I had the miscarriage. I feel like the miscarriage had to happen for me to find that writer in me without the doubt. Yeah, because I didn't believe I could before. And somehow the miscarriage made me believe, because I was able to finally write. And that cost me a lot, you know what I mean? Because there was a lot of emotional pain, a lot of physical pain, a lot of all kinds of stuff. And like, it was the kind of pain that I would not wish on my like biggest enemy. And but something good came out of it, so that's good. But it was still hard. Like, it was not an easy ride. So that's that. What belief changed in my life? The belief in me to be able to write, because I did not believe I could. And that's my strong suit. Like, which is funny, because I've always known that communication was like my strong suit, because well, it always has been. And that and the reason I didn't believe I could was because it's also my weakest point. Because, like, I have stage fright, I have all this stuff, and it all stemmed from my time with my stepmother. And somehow I, uh, well, throughout my entire life, I couldn't write or whatever because I didn't think I could. Um, but I was able to talk. Like, communication was, again, my strong suit. Um, and my husband now, he agrees with that. But I never believed I could write. And because of the miscarriage, it just, it's almost like I uh, this superpower just had its own like life, and it just popped out of me randomly, and it just took a life of its own, so to speak. Like I didn't, you know what I mean? Like it's so funny how that happened, but that's what I had to learn during my miscarriage. I was a lot of that was a lot. Um, and with that, the belief that I can write has changed clearly because I was able to close my business to do this. Yeah, it's crazy, but it's happening, and that's because my belief it did change, and the belief is that I can. What do people get wrong about resilience? Resilience, it comes in so many forms, I feel like, because resilience, if you don't believe you can, it won't happen. One, if you are not in the best physical health, then your brain is not nourished enough to even be able to be even remotely resilient. Because like I said, if your body is not nourished, your brain is not nourished, the chemical reactions are not going to fire off, right? Because your emotions, your feelings, your emotional feelings, your actions, your physical actions, all of it is are chemical reactions in the brain. Like the chemical reactions have to happen for all of that stuff to happen outwards, if that makes sense. So, those two, and then also once your everything is nourished, you also have to have the mindset that you can beat things. Or I don't like the word beat because there's a lot of fight in it. Like I pursue bliss. How do you live in bliss without fighting? You know what I mean? And so when you think about it that way, and you think about how your brain works and how you're telling yourself what you can and cannot do, if you don't believe it, oh, that was the first one. If you don't believe it, you can't do it. And then if you're not healthily nourished, you can't do it. And if the third thing is, if you are not mentally and emotionally ready for it, it's hard to do it. And how do you get ready for that? You know what I mean? So like, I think there's a lot of different parts to it, and if you're not um, uh, taking care of yourself in the first place, it's hard to be there mentally as well, if that makes sense. But you can start somewhere, and it can be one of all of them, and you can work little by little towards it, and just change little things every day. And one day you'll get to a point where you're like, oh my God, I'm a little bit more resilient than I used to be. Like it's not a change that comes all of a sudden. Like these are things you have to learn and take baby steps to. It's not something that you can just do. Because that is also a bit of a habit. You know what I mean? That you have to create. I feel like anyway. Um, what would you tell the version of you at your lowest point? You know, that's a weird question to answer for me lately. It used to be like, oh yeah, I know exactly what to tell her. But if I didn't go through what I went through in the past, I wouldn't be here where I'm at now. So I would probably just tell myself to do what I was doing and go where I go, because ultimately, at the end of the day, it all worked out. Does that make sense? Because if you weren't worried about something, you wouldn't go a direction. So it's not the fucking fly was on the camera. What was I saying? If I didn't worry about things I worried then, I wouldn't be going the direction I went. You know what I mean? So I'm not going to tell myself not to worry. I'm not going to tell myself all of those things. Whatever I did back then worked because I am here now. Um, so if I were still struggling now, then I should be talking to the person that, well, that's not true either, because talking to your past self could really help if you're still struggling. And if I can think about who I'm struggling with most right now, um, it might be the stage fright portion. And for the stage fright part of me, which did come from my childhood, was my stepmother. Um, for me now, I would tell her that that the fear then is definitely valid. Like there's a point to my fear. Like I had to have it to keep myself safe. But obviously I don't have to hold on to that forever. And that would be the me now. Cuz this stage fright thing that used to protect me is no longer valid because I don't live that life anymore. That's what I would say. It's like I'm having a therapy session right now. Okay, so my ultimate question at the end is this: what are you ultimately pursuing, and how do you know when you're moving toward it? I'm more worried about what we are ultimately pursuing. And I think I've mentioned this through this episode, is that I pursue bliss. What do I need to do to be able to get to a place in my life where I'm living in bliss? In Beautifully Unhinged, which is my business, my tagline is, with courage, through courage comes bliss. And I think there's a lot of truth to that, because if you're not going through the hard things, if you're not finding things out about yourself, if you're not basically facing all your fears, there is no way you can find bliss. And that comes in many forms, and it's not just facing your fears. It's like food, for example. Like, we all love ice cream, we all love potato chips, we all love these horrible things that does nothing for our bodies. If anything, it's not giving us what we need. And but in order to reach that bliss, so I don't have so much worries and I can actually live with vigor while maintaining peace, then my physical and my mental state has to be stable, right? And I had to think about things that way with everything that I did in my life in the past, which was knowing what was good for me. When I was married to my ex-husband, for example, obviously I married him for a reason, but very quickly did I realize that I was miserable. And what did I have to do to pursue bliss? Well, I didn't really know I was pursuing bliss back then, but I knew I didn't want to be miserable. And I still go through that in my today, and which is the whole reason why I made all of those choices during my miscarriage, because to, you know, like I said, I wanted to feel all the things on my skin. I wanted freedom, right? Like I wanted to do whatever I wanted to do while I did the work that um, gave me the feeling of impact on the world, and also being able to do me, you know. And so pursuing bliss through courage is my thing. And I am very curious on what kind of answers I could get from all of my future guests, especially with that last question. It is at uh, a little bit past the 1 hour mark at this point, so I should probably end it here. But I do hope that this was helpful, not just for me to understand how it would look like with my future guests, but helpful for you with all the stories that I have basically shared with you today. Um, yeah, I hope you like it. If you did, subscribe and like my episode and share it with whoever you think might need to hear some of the messages that I have shared today. You guys have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next week.